Lando Norris brutally turned down Red Bull Racing, committing his future to McLaren by signing a lucrative new contract on the eve of the 2022 Formula 1 season. According to this huge contract, Norris will make £20 million per season until the end of 2025. It may come as no surprise that McLaren felt compelled to give Lando a large pay increase when he outperformed his new teammate Daniel Ricciardo in 2021, who also has a sizable deal worth £15 million per season. However, in an interview with the German publication Auto Motor and Sport, Norris revealed that he also spoke with Red Bull about being Max Verstappen's teammate before signing with McLaren. Would you have liked to see a Norris-Verstappen lineup at Red Bull? And could Norris have given a hard time to Verstappen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's find out why Norris turned down Red Bull. Of course, there are talks with other people from time to time, Norris says. You always ask yourself the question, what's best for my career? After all, I want to win races and win world championships. There have been talks with Red Bull. They are a team that has been in the top 3 for years. But that just shows even more how much confidence I have in McLaren. Although there were talks, I felt McLaren was better for me to achieve my goals. We're unsure of how serious these decisions were. Although Norris claims it's typical for drivers to look around the market a little while negotiating new contracts, Red Bull has previously sought after Norris. Red Bull attempted to sign Norris to replace Brendan Hartley at Toro Rosso in the first part of 2018, while Norris was in front of Mercedes' George Russell in the race for the Formula 2 championship. Hartley had only earned 1 point in the team's first 6 races with Honda and was coming off a severe practice crash in Spain. But Pierre Gasly had had significant points finishes in Bahrain and Monaco, so Red Bull were actively looking for a replacement to minimize damages and maximize points. At the time, Norris was a junior at McLaren. Although Stoffel Vandoorne and Fernando Alonso were still under contract with McLaren, negotiations were underway to replace Vandoorne with either Esteban Ocon or Carlos Sainz. When Alonso opted to take a break from Formula 1 in the early summer of 2018, it allowed McLaren to advance Norris and prevent rival teams from swooping in to steal him away. Norris would have become a free agent if Alonso had made a different choice, and McLaren would have had to sign Sainz or Ocon to replace Vandoorne regardless. Had Norris signed for Toro Rosso instead of Alex Albon, he would have joined Verstappen's Red Bull team in mid-2019 and either flourished and remained there, or he would now be at Williams licking his wounds. In retrospect, Norris probably would have performed better at Red Bull than Gasly and Albon did. Norris and Verstappen get along great since they were sim racing teammates, and Norris is comfortable with the kind of oversteer balance that Verstappen prefers. Norris cites the following choice for a driving style in the same AM/US interview. "I hate understeering cars," he says, "and that's exactly the kind of car we have right now. I usually try to add wing to the front and change the mechanical balance of the car so it turns in greedily. But sometimes it's like you still keep the understeer and add oversteer at the same time. I've always been a driver who wants an agile car and then lives with the consequences that the car just slides more in the rear. You have more control that way. An oversteering car does what I want it to do. If I want to steer a little more, it rotates. I can better control how I position the car for the turn. With understeer, it's different. I feel like the car is controlling me. When you're in the middle of a corner and understeer, you have to wait a long time to accelerate. That feels like an eternity, even if only a tenth is lost." It's also true that Norris wasn't the same person he is now during his first F1 season in 2019. He was far less assured. He now freely acknowledges that at the time, he struggled with his mental health and wondered if he fit in Formula 1. It's also possible that he found the Red Bull environment to be overpowering and didn't perform to the best of his ability in what was a challenging lineup of cars in 2019 and 2020. However, Red Bull was initially eager to steal Norris from McLaren and may have been more willing to stick with it through last season and this. You can understand why Red Bull would have rekindled interest in Norris at the conclusion of the previous season, given the amount of development he's exhibited over the past 3 seasons, proving himself to be faster on average than Ricciardo. After backing off from pushing Ricciardo for the win at Monza, Norris took pole at Sochi and came dangerously close to winning that race on merit against Lewis Hamilton's much faster Mercedes. Norris was on course for pole position in the wet at Spa until crashing in Q3. Given Norris's preference for an oversteer car balance, it's almost certain that he would have outperformed Sergio Perez this season, even though Perez has won 2 races and claimed a pole position. Norris has proven to be an incredibly versatile driver, maybe benefiting from a run of challenging McLaren cars. I don't feel like the car is doing what I want it to, Norris adds. I've had to adapt quite a bit. It's hard to describe. How I steer the car, how I brake. It's not just like you hit the brakes and then you turn in. It's about timing, how fast or slow you do it. Slow turns, medium fast turns, and fast turns, it changes all the time. I actually want to take a lot of momentum into the turn, so getting off the brakes and attacking the entrance to the corner. I'm moving further away from that style this year. This car is not made for my driving style. I had to adjust to it. I did that, but it still doesn't feel natural to me. A partnership between Verstappen and Norris at Red Bull would have undoubtedly created a super team at the top of Formula 1 this season. But it's also perhaps a sign of the influence Verstappen has at Red Bull, that a driver like Norris would pass up the chance to compete against him for race victories in the same car, now in the hopes that McLaren will eventually close the gap and be able to compete. However, it appears Norris decided against pushing for a move to a title-winning team to stay with one that's only won 1 race since the end of 2012. Norris acknowledges that McLaren thought it would be closer to the front this year under F1's new rules, but keep in mind that he agreed to his latest contract extension before the first race of 2022, so couldn't have known McLaren would actually slip backwards this year. Norris must now bide his time till McLaren's new simulator and wind tunnel come online after reaching an agreement on that £80 million contract, and maybe using those Red Bull negotiations as a beneficial negotiating tool. He admits to feeling impatient and frustrated in the interim, and predicts that McLaren won't start to compete again until at least 2024. I'm super happy and feel comfortable, he insists. I'm enjoying it in McLaren. I enjoy working with the guys. I believe in them. If I didn't, I wouldn't have signed a long-term contract. My head is looking ahead. My ideas are long-term. We have to keep working continuously. In 2024 and 2025, I will then have my best chance with McLaren. 2024 will be the first year in which we operate with our infrastructure almost at the level of the top teams. The rest will be up to us, the people who work here. This will be our first year where we have no excuses. We will have to wait and see then to find out if Norris is right. But until then, they will have to settle for the best of the rest at McLaren, which is something you wouldn't want to do as someone who's aiming for a world championship like Norris. At least he'll have a new teammate next season, one that is young and hungry, just like Norris himself. So he will have that battle to look forward to. What are your thoughts on McLaren's chances in the upcoming years? Will they be able to overcome the performance deficit in the near future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to show McLaren some support. We'll see you in the next video.